Good morning, everyone. This is Amy Valdivia with the Divorce Literacy Podcast. And boy, oh boy, have we got a great episode for you today. Today, we have Ms. Kerrie Buncher of Green Giraffe Legal Services, which is a division of Buncher Law. And let me tell you, we have some information to share and some light to shed to the divorce world, and I'm very excited to have her here with me today. Thank you so very much for being here, Kerrie.
Oh, thank you, Amy, for having me.
Okay, people are wondering, first of all, Green Giraffe. So before we go any further and talk about all that, I want the backstory. Tell us who you are and how you came about Green Giraffe.
Yeah, so in 2019, there just seemed to be a need at Buncher for clients that were calling the firm, and they just didn't have $7,500 to $15,000 to retain an attorney. And so one of the paralegals that I worked with here, we thought it might be nice to start a division that handled mediation and then kind of one party divorce, or helping people navigate the system that couldn't afford an attorney and needed more flat fee services to be able to do it. And, funny story, but the girls at the time were all into spirit animals. And so they were insistent that I must have a spirit animal. And they actually chose the giraffe because they felt like it was long reaching, forward thinking, and always trying to look at the other side of things and the long, big picture, if you will.
Right.
And so, and just a very peaceful animal. And so they felt like that fit me. And so when we decided to do a division, I thought the last thing I want is to put attorneys all put names to everything. And I'm not an attorney. And I thought I wanted to stand out and be different. So I had this envision of, this giraffe with this bow tie that was green and that I could use for marketing purposes and educational purposes in the future. And so it just kind of got born out of that.
And lo and behold, Green Giraffe. Now, let's talk about that gap. Your background was support to Buncher, family law.
Correct. Yeah, I did advertising. And then over the years, you start to learn more and more about the divorce process. And I quickly fell into not just supporting, but also doing paralegal work.
And there are multiple individuals that walk into an attorney's office, and not only do they have that deer in headlights look because they really don't know what they're about to walk into, they're constantly thinking about, oh my gosh, how am I going to afford this attorney?
Right. No, absolutely.
Yes.
And, most good attorneys are going to charge for a consultation, and people are hesitant to even pay for a consultation. But if you're really looking to get educated and advice on your specific circumstances, that's kind of where they go. And I just felt like there needed to be something else out there to just kind of get people started and headed in the right direction. So I get a lot of phone calls where, my goal is always to leave somebody better than I found them. So I spoke with a gentleman yesterday and just been served divorce papers and didn't have the money to hire me, but I spent about 25 minutes on the phone with him, just telling him where to go, a little bit about the process and just making him feel comfortable. And, for those clients that can afford my services, it's still a heck of a lot cheaper than going and hiring an attorney. For the do-it-yourselfers, it's making sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted and everything's getting done correctly. Because I've even helped attorneys who thought they could get their own divorce through, and lo and behold, they cannot.
There's definitely the emotional side to that. So let's talk, though, the business perspective. Is there a specific threshold or dollar amount or asset amount that really tips you off when you're doing your intake on whether or not you would this client qualifies for your services or not? Or is it
So
any?
It's less about a dollar intake and more about the value to the services, right? So typically it depends on what you're looking at. So if we're dealing with a mediation client, then the prices are going to range somewhere between 5,500 and 15,000. And I'm just honest with people about what that looks like. And it really comes down to educating people on, can you make decisions yourself? How complex are the issues in your case? How much attorney involvement do we need or outside support? And then for other clients, I call them I have a lot of 90-day fiance clients, for lack of a better term. But, we found love abroad and it hasn't worked out. And we've only been married for a year or two. And we don't have a lot of assets to divide and we don't have kids. We just need to get a divorce, but we want somebody to kind of guide us through it and make sure that all the paperwork and everything is done correctly. And so for clients like that, and there's plenty that are not 90-day divorce clients, right? But our average, young couples or people that just got married too quickly and didn't know each other. And again, just haven't been married long and not a lot of assets. And in that case, we can look at doing what's called a default with agreement. It's where you're working with both parties, but you're doing it in a more effective way. And those typically cost somewhere between 2,100 and 3,000. So I try to look at the individual and figure out what it is that they need. Often I'll ask, like, is your spouse amicable? Or have you talked about divorce? Do you think they're going to work with you through this process or not? And then, the other, I call them one party divorce, or parties who can't afford an attorney and just need some guidance in getting through the system. And sometimes it might be just getting the initial paperwork done and filed with the court. So it might be a mom or the lower income earner in the family that stays home with the kids, but has a job, but just doesn't have $15,000 to put down with an attorney. But their husband makes money and they want it to be amicable, but they're just not sure how it's going to go. And there's a lot of uncertainty with these women and men that I deal with that have these situations. So typically we break it down into phases, and we do phase 1 and phase 2. So we get their petition for dissolution or their response completed. We get all their financial disclosures done. And at that point in time, I kind of try to help them identify, where are you with the divorce process? And then they can determine, do I need to do a motion for support? And what is that going to look like? And do I need an attorney at that point? And can I ask the court for attorney's fees? So we kind of, every situation is different, and we just try to guide people through and look at the most reasonable and economical way to get by. And, I'm not afraid to. I've had clients recently. I just had a mom of a toddler who doesn't have a lot of money, but her husband is doing okay and has money in the bank. And, he just was not cooperating with anything. And they have a small little one that's 10 months old, and she needs spousal support. She needs child support and some help. And she just could not afford to, she could afford to hire me to do her petition and all the basic stuff, but just couldn't afford us to do a motion. And so I, charged her my hourly rate and guided her through the paperwork and took her through how to draft her own motion.
Wow. Okay. Clearly, you care. Clearly, you have this affinity to help. This came from a very rich history in your love for family law. Truly, it's about the world that you have been a part of for a very, very long time. And, people work with individuals that they know, they like, and they trust. We've all heard that. How many times? People need to know your story, and people need to know the background. And I would love for you to share about your time with CASA, and even college time, and why you even, how you were assisting with Buncher even before as well. So that way people really
Absolutely.
get to know you.
It's funny. I always say I didn't become an attorney. I married one. It's the easiest way in. No, but when I was in college, I thought I wanted to be an attorney, and I actually did an internship back in Washington, D.C. with a lot of government attorneys. And the comment I often got was, "You're a bleeding heart and you
Yeah.
care too much, and this world will eat you alive." And because of that, I did a lot of volunteer work, as you said. So I worked with a interim housing situation for teens that were coming out of the system and were over the age of 18 and had graduated from high school and needed life skills in Washington, D.C. Then when I moved back to California, I got involved with court appointed special advocates, or CASA. So I did some work with families where a child or children had been sexually abused and they needed to testify against their abuser. And we took them down to the court, made them feel comfortable, and really helped them understand what it was that they were going to face. And then I got the opportunity to actually be a CASA to an individual boy who started with me when he was 10 and was in the system. And we stayed with him for 4 years. His parents were in jail and supported him emotionally. And just once we got to that point where they're trying to reunite with the parents, there's a lot of court hearings and whatnot. So my husband, who at the time was an attorney, but not a family law attorney yet, but both of us just have always had a passion to help people. And so the two of us were there for him and would go to court with him and help him feel comfortable as he was kind of transitioning from a group home for children and back to living with his mom again. And so, you fast forward to a few years past that, and I had my own kids and stayed at home and raised them when they were little. And then my husband's really good friend and business partner to be at the time, but friend from law school, was a family law attorney and asked us to come join him and go out on our own. So my husband left the world of business litigation and civil litigation and went into family law.
Let's go back to that moment when you were a CASA, because I believe there's a true correlation to that relationship and divorce. Because you said that he was transitioning to go back to his parents.
Correct.
What happens with your relationship?
With our relationship, unfortunately, when you're a CASA, it's very difficult, but you have to understand that no different than our children when we're putting them out into the world, it's the same thing. So he needed to have a relationship that wasn't affected by the interference of myself and my husband and our relationship. So in order to give him that shot with his mom and to redefine that and have that time, our goal is to hope that we've given him enough self-confidence and tools while he's been with us to be able to set boundaries and know his limits and be able to, reestablish that relationship with his mom and move forward.
That relationship, albeit you are a fantastic memory for him, reality is the relationship is severed because you're saying, go be free,
Right. Yeah.
go to your family. It's very much like divorce.
It is.
There's a relationship that is now severed and you helped move them in the next direction. Tell me how you believe that the skills that you used during this period of time while with as a CASA now has been applicable to the divorce world.
Yeah, I think I have a peaceful voice when I deal with people and a place that I'm coming from. So I try to get people to get out of the moment of the stress and anxiety that they're in and focus on the fact that there's a new beginning for them. And what is that new beginning going to look like? And that's part of the divorce process. It's part of bringing people like you in, or financial advisors, or tax people, real estate people, just to kind of look at what does that future look like. And they talk about sports players who get a ton of money all at one time, and then they don't make wise decisions.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate to be involved with a business entity called Provisors that brings a lot of like-minded people together, like you and I. And it's amazing because it really gives me the opportunity to have resources for my clients. So if they're going to get $100,000 in a settlement, what are they going to do with that money? If they've got money that's getting rolled over for retirement, if they're planning on purchasing a home, it's just bringing all those pieces together to for people and trying to get them going in the right direction to make smart decisions. So recently I had a client whose grandfather had left her in his estate quite a bit of money, and she had wisely invested it into 2 homes, but then a good portion of the money was just gone and unaccounted for. And the first thing I did was set her up with a financial advisor and say, okay, you're getting this money back from your investment. Now let's figure out how you take care of yourself and your kids moving forward in a financially responsible way.
It's the whole collaboration, which that seems to be
Exactly.
the buzz, right? And out here in California, all of a sudden it's starting to take off. However, it's truly about reaching out to all of the resources around you. So that way those clients have the ability to make those informed decisions. And that's very much in line with what we say at the Divorce Lending Association. It's about making the informed decisions. We're not making the decisions. They are making the decisions. We're just giving them the information.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have learned that you are someone who I can lean on for all sorts of information, and I'm truly appreciative of that. Let me ask, let's dive into some of these cases that you've had. Give me the most memorable case that you've helped that just tugs at that bleeding heart.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, some people have to deal with parental kidnapping, and we've had 2 cases over the years. One, which was with Buncher Law, that I was completely involved with and supportive of, but my husband did all the work on that. And it was a situation where the kids were taken at a mall, and mom was not in the best of place or the right mind to have the kids, and was involved in drugs and whatnot. And we were able to, over a course of a couple of years, these cases are never simple or quick, but get his kids back to him. And we still get postcards and things from him today of how happy he is. He's remarried, pictures of the kids and how he's doing. And so that one always sticks with me. And then recently, similarly, I had a dad that came to me through Green Giraffe Legal, and I had helped him with all of his paperwork through the divorce, and the divorce had finally been finalized, very difficult spouse. And right after we finalized the divorce, I got a phone call in late August, September, stating that this was about a year ago, that a good friend of his wife's had contacted him, and she was planning on taking their child and moving to Texas without telling him. So we went to court. We switched him over from Green Giraffe Legal to Buncher. Buncher went to court with him. We asked the judge to make orders, but the judge wouldn't do anything because mom hadn't done anything yet. So he basically warned her and said there was no need for child abduction orders because they were basically already stated in his final judgment. 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from him at 9:00 at night, and his wife had gotten in a car accident in Texas, rolled the car, and his child had been airlifted to Texas Children's Hospital. So, yeah, I mean, there's things that we don't make up, and they just happen, right? And so that's like the advantage of Green Giraffe being a division of Buncher Law is that I was able to immediately lean on the Buncher team and the attorneys. And they already had an idea of what was going on, but we didn't know that she would actually go through with it after being warned by the court. So our main concern was getting him to his son's side. So we're like, you need to get on a plane, get out there and take care of everything that you need to take care of on that end. We'll take care of the legal stuff. And within 2 days, we had a remote court appearance for him with us here at the court with the judge, and we had full physical and legal temporary custody awarded to him.
That's
So,
amazing.
yeah. And then we just, a lot of people don't understand, but like I said, with the first kidnapping, when things like this go on, there's just all kinds of follow-up hearings and details. And we were just with him every step of the way from, getting monitored visitation
Right.
and changing spousal support and things of that nature. And that's the benefit of Green Giraffe being the division of, because we get to kind of swap things back and forth. And likewise, we'll have people that come to Buncher and they're not afraid to pay for the retention fee or whatnot, but they're looking for things to be amicable with their wife. And often, Sven, our managing partner, will say, you need to talk to my wife and do mediation. and and that's going to be the best and the cheapest route to go. And so we kind of, switch clients back and forth between the two
Right.
divisions as needed, which is nice.
That's awesome. I think that's the key that people need to understand with your services. Many times they want the do it yourself or the cheap and easy. And then they say, oh, well, I just go get a paralegal. There's a whole bunch of paralegals that can file the papers for me. And you have the background knowledge, plus you have the background resource and support that if you need to shift at the drop of a dime super fast to go legal as opposed to paralegal, you have that capability quickly.
Exactly. And that's how it was set up, right? Because you just don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And, we've had people come in and they're like, well, I spoke to a paralegal and the paralegal told me I had no interest in the house. And it's like, well, did you speak to an attorney? And I always
Right.
tell my clients, I'll educate you on Divorce 101. I will help you understand your paperwork and the process of divorce. And I can take anything that an attorney tells you and take it from legal speak to client speak where you understand it. But when an issue comes up that's a complex issue, you need attorneys that can advise and look at it. And it's why even with Green Giraffe, all of our judgments are drafted by an attorney. You just don't know what you don't know. And I'm smart enough to know that my law and motion attorney knows a lot more about drafting those judgments and what to look for or the questions to ask
Right.
to protect people in the future, rather than an paralegal or a self-help center or somebody else drafting something.
A valuable resource, one-stop shop that people can utilize by just coming to you. It now becomes an amicable divorce. It allows people to just breathe, right? I mean, because now all of a sudden they go, oh, I'm completely taken care of. I don't necessarily need the $100,000 attorney, but I have access to that attorney if necessary.
Exactly. And often I'll bring in other attorneys just to consult, or I have I have relationships with attorneys in San Diego, Riverside, Los Angeles, and Orange County, and I utilize them all. So not only do I have 3 attorneys in my own office that I utilize, but I utilize those resources around Southern California as well, because I might have a client that calls 6 months post-divorce or a year post-divorce and something's going on and they're not getting along with their spouse and they feel like their child's in danger or they need to make a change in custody and modification and it's not going to be friendly this time around. And I'm able to say, here's who you should call and they'll be able to help you. And, but I'm also able to say, can we resolve this amicably? Because that's who I am. And is there a way we can, go back and talk to your spouse again and talk about doing a stipulation in order and coming to some sort of mid ground? Or, I like to look up, I always say it's divorce, but it's alternative solutions to divorce. And it's because I really look at things from what is it do you need? You know, if sometimes it's a situation where you really need a therapist, you don't
Right,
need a court system,
right,
right? You know, it's not always that it needs to be resolved in court, or sometimes it's a situation where your child's going to be 18 and graduating from high school by the time you even get to court to deal with the issue. So
right.
why do you want to
Exactly.
spend the money going through it? So I'm very conscious of other people's money. And my whole motto is let's not fund your attorney's retirement. Let's keep that money and fund your own.
What a novel concept. Oh my gosh. Well, I have to tell you, this is so helpful. And so there may be someone listening, watching right now, and they want an alternative solution. They want the calm voice, the clarity, the collaboration, the resources, and just some help. Summed up in one word, help. How can those individuals find you? Oh, and before we go there, clarify, California only, true?
California only, yes, because our
Okay,
divorce laws are very different from other states. And
okay,
then I primarily work Southern California. So Los Angeles, San Bernardino, Riverside, San Diego, Orange County.
okay. And
So,
how can they
and
find
www.greengiraffelegal.com, and our direct line, which is also on our website, is 949-873-4222.
Thank you so very much. And I hope that those listening take advantage. Unfortunately, in their situation, if they're listening, it's not necessarily the happiest time of their life, but I hope they take advantage of the unique situation and wonderful services you have to offer. So I thank you
Absolutely.
so
Well,
very, very much.
thank you for having me on, Amy, and thank you for being a tremendous resource for me as well, because as you know, selling homes, refinancing homes,
Yes.
and figuring out, you know, just what you're doing with the family home is a big component of divorce. And it's really nice to be able to have somebody that I can trust and send people to when we have issues in that arena as well. And
Thank you so very much for that.
like-minded people attract, and you and I definitely have that
Yes.
like-minded and wanting to help people out. So I appreciate you.
One case at a time, right? Thank you
One
so
case at
very,
a
very
time.
much. Have a
Thanks,
wonderful,
Amy.
wonderful
You
day.
too.
Take
Take
care.
care. Bye.